parte del evento líder en Latinoamérica de fundición, del 16 al 18 de octubre en Centro City Banamex. Regístrate gratis en fundiexpo.mx.
Podcast.
And when a transformation happens, you need to jump with your both feet forward. And that's what we did when it came to AI, right? Because long before the world started talking about Gen AI, we made some very unconventional bets, even partnerships, back in 2018, 2019. What is available today will double every 6 months for the same price. So you now even have to project forward. 1 year from now, what is a constraint today will not even be a constraint. And then with that abundance, rethink how you think about your workflow and process, and simplify, change, automate. These are, I think, some of the change management associated with adoption of AI is probably one of the bigger challenges. Also, your fear of learning, right? For example, I always say I was an electrical engineer, and I wish I really understood Maxwell's equations while studying them. But now with AI, I can have it teach me at my pace. I can have it, given the multimodal input and output, perhaps maybe I'm more of a visual learner. I can even have text being represented visually, right? And so that I can learn. It can be personalized. So I think we really can dream the dream of every Mexican student having a personalized tutor that can allow them to learn fearlessly any subject they want, right?
Fundiexpo, la industria que fabrica industrias, del 16 al 18 de octubre en Centro City Banamex. Presenta.
Bienvenidos al Rodcast, conociendo las personalidades detrás de los negocios con Rodrigo Pacheco.
Satya, thank you very much for the interview. I'm very, very happy. How long it will take the double down in Mexico, the $1.3 billion in terms of the deployment of that investment?
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be with you, and it's great to be in Mexico. We are very excited about two things that we announced today. One is the expansion of our data center. In fact, our data center, the first Mexico Central, came live in May. We had already invested $1 billion plus, and today we announced that we're going to double down. So that means we're going to invest an additional $1.3 billion to build out these cloud regions, which happen to be AI factories right here in Mexico, so that everybody in Mexico can use this to build more technology. Also, we're very excited to announce that today we are going to skill 5 million plus people in Mexico around AI skills, because ultimately it comes down to having, I'll call these cloud and AI factories, and people who are skilled in digital and AI to be able to then increase the productivity, the economic growth inside of Mexican society and economy. And so both of these announcements are, I think, very key.
Yeah, they are great. Now, what about the energy challenge? A couple of days ago, Microsoft, well, not Microsoft, but it was announced that you're going to buy atomic energy. What is the challenge in the North American region, particularly with this investment in Mexico?
Yeah, it's a great question, because ultimately I think every country will have to bring together, I would call, the next generation infrastructure when it comes to energy, compute, and connectivity, so that broadly there can be economic growth. And that, I think, is fundamentally what's happening. The good part here is, if you think about the investment we are making in data centers, and given our commitments to energy transition, effectively you can even think of this as stimulus for the energy investment, right? After all, we are off-take for the grid, we are off-take for new energy projects. And so that's what you saw even earlier this week when we said we're going to work with Constellation Energy on bringing up 3 Mile Island. It's about nuclear energy. That's one source. There can be wind, there can be solar, there can be other forms of green energy that can all now get invested in increasing rates, and will help not just the data centers, right? Because, for example, in Mexico, when we build a data center, we are modernizing the grid along with the data center. So we are investing in building infrastructure that is going to be broadly applicable, because when you do the computation, the amount of energy that's used by compute is still less than single digit, low single digits. So in some sense, the energy consumption beyond compute is also something that we will be able to help.
How will you explain? You have lived 4 computational shifts. How about the last one, the AI one, in terms of speed? How would you explain it in terms of the other three that you have lived so far at
Yeah,
Microsoft?
that's right. I mean, you're right in saying, at least in my life as a professional inside of even Microsoft in the last 32 plus years, I've seen the PC and client server, then the internet and web, mobile cloud, and now AI. This is my fourth transformation. I think, first of all, as a company, we are now entering our 50th year, and one lesson is for us is always to know how to think about what is going to come next, or in other words, always be in a great position to be able to go all in on something new. Sometimes, timing, you never get it right, but at the same time, you have to have a posture that nothing lasts forever. And when a transformation happens, you need to jump with your both feet forward. And that's what we did when it came to AI, right? Because long before the world started talking about Gen AI, we made some very unconventional bets, even partnerships, back in 2018, 2019, and that's what has led. And now, as AI, we're getting into the middle innings of AI. What I find is we are ahead on not just talking about the technology, but quite frankly, translating that technology so that it can meet people and organizations where they are and help them transform. Because ultimately, it's the outcomes that matter. GitHub Copilot was the first core product that transformed software development. What we have done in contact centers with Dynamics 365 is transforming contact centers. What we're doing with Microsoft 365 Copilot is transforming work and workflow and work artifacts. So to us, we not only, and Security Copilot is going to really be perhaps the most important innovation in security to be able to deal with what is an emerging threat landscape. So I ultimately think that now we're entering a phase where we're not just going to talk about technology, we're going to start talking about the business outcomes of this technology.
Would you say this is faster and broader in terms of the AI revolution if we have the frame of reference of the PC or the other two?
I think so, because in some sense it builds on, right? So it compounds. For example, even in Mexico, with what is being the PC and mobile and cloud, you now have the rails on which AI can ride. And that, I think, is what is leading to faster diffusion. As I said, even in my keynote this morning, there isn't that much difference, right? When I was talking to even, I mean, this is not just a digital startup. You even take a customer like Cemex, and their use of AI and AI models across the length and breadth of their digital transformation agenda, right? It's very exciting to see. Or Grupo Bimbo, what they're doing. It's just that every company now is able to take what they were doing already with cloud and now hyper accelerate it with AI. And so therefore you're right. In fact, that is probably the opportunity Mexico has.
What will be your advice in terms of not being the Stanley Carriage Motor Company and being the Ford in terms of understanding this new technology? Because maybe sometimes the frame of thought is not the adequate one.
I think it's a great reference, because I think the fundamental thing that needs to happen is you need to not just think about the technology, but you need to think about the process change, because ultimately how we work and what we work on also changes. And so you need to be able to rethink. It's sort of a bit of an imagination that you need to have, how to use this new input. Which, by the way, is increasing in abundance, right? What is available today will double every 6 months for the same price. So you now even have to project forward. 1 year from now, what is a constraint today will not even be a constraint. And then with that abundance, rethink how you think about your workflow and process, and simplify, change, automate. These are, I think, some of the change management associated with adoption of AI is probably one of the bigger challenges.
In order to be Ford and not the other one. So what about, you come obviously from India, what would you say is the pieces that Mexico needs to have? You already say that now it's faster, but being an emerging country, what will be the pieces that we need to be ready in terms of the companies and the government in order to be on top of this new AI revolution?
I think that Mexico has many, many elements and great structural advantages, quite frankly, with some of the nearshoring that is happening. I think Mexico has a very unique opportunity to become, not just in AI, but across the board economically a superpower. And so in that context, I would say I think some of the basics matter, like all things, right, which is, we talked about how you need to have enough sources of energy that are obviously renewable. How do we ensure that, construction projects here happen in time? What about permitting? When I think about the new infrastructure, how private sector and governments work together to streamline the process and the implementation and the project completions are going to matter. Time matters. Because anything that can get done faster gets done is going to mean that the people of Mexico will be able to enjoy the benefits of this transformation faster. That, I think, is the core.
And a Copilot bureaucrat that helps you with all this stuff will be great. Now, what about in terms of education, what will be the frame of reference in terms of embracing this? Because it's not easy. Many universities and schools are like, oh, you shouldn't use that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think for me, there's two things, right? One is, at the end of the day, it's human capital coupled with, I'll call it, new sources of, I would call it, production. Now, one of the fundamental things I think of AI is actually it reduces the barrier to expertise in some sense, right? Which is, we see it in software development. Now, if you're a designer, you can even be a front-end developer, right? So that's a great way to expand the scope of what you can do, right? So I think that can happen in every role in our society and in our economy, where people can use AI to get more done more expansively. Also, your fear of learning, right? For example, I always say I was an electrical engineer, and I wish I really understood Maxwell's equations while studying them. But now with AI, I can have it teach me at my pace. I can have it, given the multimodal input and output, it perhaps, maybe I'm more of a visual learner. I can even have text being represented visually, right? And so that I can learn. It can be personalized. So I think we really can dream the dream of every Mexican student having a personalized tutor that can allow them to learn fearlessly any subject they want, right? So therefore, I think AI will ultimately turn human ingenuity, human creativity, and give us more leverage, while at the same time really allowing us to also unburden ourselves from some of the drudgery of even knowledge work. And so I think that thinking of human capital as knowing how to use this technology to benefit broadly the society, I think is going to be one of the most important things.
Unlike the cell phone or mobile platforms, now it's every Mexican has a smartphone, so that is going to happen very fast. In terms of this technology, 5 years is long term. How do you see Microsoft, but the whole companion AI in 5 years? What do you visualize in terms of that and the vision?
I think that as I sort of even talked about this morning, I see the scaling laws will continue to work. And if they continue to work, we will have a richer and richer agentic world where you have personal agents, organizational agents, you have cross-organizational agents, all working together to allow and enable more productivity across broad society, whether it's health outcomes, educational outcomes, public sector efficiency. And so my hope is in next 5 years, ultimately we will see it in the one metric that matters to us all, which is economic growth or GDP growth. That, by the way, is sustainable even, right? That is really being driven by, sources of energy that are more sustainable, that are more inclusive in terms of their economic growth agenda. So I think that that's the dream we should have.
And probably we're going to be the CEO of many AI agents. What is your advice? You are a CEO of a huge company. What will be your advice in terms of managing all these agents? Because now we have Einstein, Newton as my agent, so I will need to manage them. What will be?
I think that the first thing is for every business leader to have a good sense of what's the business outcome, and then to be able to take, say, something like Copilot as an orchestration layer. That then allows you, because at the end of the day, you need a human interface to all of this agentic world. That's what we built into Copilot, right? Copilot will know how to talk to you and take your instructions, notify you on important things, but it'll also on the other side know how to orchestrate multiple agents. So when you talked about all these other agents, they're all Copilot extensions, in fact. And so therefore, that's, I think, one of the goals we have, is to build a rich tool chain and a great user interface so that the orchestration of multiple agents becomes much more easy and intuitive.
Just last, what is your take in terms of the geopolitical challenges that we have in the development of AI and the regulation? Because sometimes technology is going much faster than the regulation, and at the same time you have other actors that are developing. What's your take in terms of that?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, as digital technology like AI is so pervasive and so important to our lives and our economies, you can expect that governments and legislative bodies are everywhere in the world will have a deep interest in ensuring safety, security, privacy. And these are things that we obviously already are doing a lot in, and we will self-regulate, but also we should fully expect that there will be AI safety regulations and hopefully there will be more, I'll call it global coming together on what are the safety standards. We've done this in other domains, whether it's healthcare or whether it's in food safety and other places. So therefore, some of the same things we can learn from that and apply it. And ultimately, I think this will come down to the benefits need to be maximized, because any regulation has to have a view on how to ensure that the new technology can drive that growth, that inclusive growth, that can improve health outcomes, can improve public sector efficiency, while at the same time mitigating the real world risks of bias. And so those are the things that I think regulation will help with.
Would you say for a country like Mexico, the US White House framework or the European, what is better, a more open one or more specific?
I mean, I think obviously it's for Mexico to decide. Yeah. And that said, though, I think Mexico's priority should be, for sure, make sure that this AI is safe to deploy in the country, and it's really driving the agenda that is of inclusive growth and safety in the country. But at the same time, I think diffusion of this technology is very important, because after all, Mexico has this very unique opportunity to even leapfrog perhaps. After all of the investments that were made in cloud and mobile and PC are here. Right now, the Mexican economy can be turbocharged with a new input. And so the question is, how do you balance that opportunity with the risks? And I think being clear-eyed about the risks, but also being very, very grounded in the opportunity, I think is how we should think about regulation.
Thank you very much. Congratulations for 10 years, stellar years at the front of Microsoft.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Los podcasts son como del 2019. Lo de hoy es escuchar el Rodcast con Rodrigo Pacheco.
Fundi Expo, la industria que fabrica industrias, del 16 al 18 de octubre en Centro City Banamex, presentó.
Esta es una producción de Excelsior Podcast. Derechos reservados. México 2024.